Hello, viewers on Reddit, YouTube, whichever platform you're watching this on. I made a post on AskPhysics yesterday saying that I'd answer some of your physics questions. And so here we go. The three questions that I've chosen, of which this video will be the first part of, they are one of the earlier comments. And because I want to get a couple videos out there, they're going to be questions that are relatively easier and faster to answer. If you have any more questions, feel free to just comment it down below in YouTube. I'll be looking through those as well. So here we go. This question is from Diet Coke Will Kill Me. Why is it easier to turn the bike pedal the faster you get going? I understand intuitively that inertia is doing some of the work once the bike is up to speed, but how is that cashed out in the force balance? This is what I never understand about gearing and transmissions. When stationary, you can't turn the highest gear. When in motion, said gear becomes easy to turn. Okay, so there's a couple things going on in this question. I'm going to address them. So this part, right? This part. They're very similar, and this part's a slightly different concept. So let's address them separately, like this. So why is it easier to turn bike pedal the faster you get going? Well, this is something due to static friction, and we're comparing it with kinetic friction. Usually, static friction is given by the term US and UK. So basically, when you have a box with a weight on a ground that's rough, you get friction. You know, if you try to push a box on the ground, it might be hard to do so, and that's because of friction. You'll notice that when you try to start pushing it, it's very difficult, but once you get it moving, it's a little bit easier. And it's the same thing with a bike, even if it's on a wheel. So friction, what is it caused by? Well, if there was a perfectly smooth surface, right, something like ice or something, you can see that there's very, very little friction. However, most surfaces, even if they look smooth, are in fact very rough. When you have a rough box and rough ground, right, and you have them very close together, you have these little peaks, and they look a little like mountains. And these peaks, as you try to slide them across each other, they're going to bump into each other, right? They're going to bump into each other. And as they try to bump into each other and slide over each other, this could possibly get damaged or bent or break off, and it takes energy to do that. And that's the cause of friction. You have these resistance caused by these very, very small microscopic bumps that are trying to rub against each other. It's why something like carpet provides a lot of friction, because if you look at carpets, it's really just a bunch of little small tons like this, and they're trying to rub over each other. So if you have anything, it will sink into the carpet and tries to go over the next small bump here, and that causes a lot of resistance. So this is essentially why static friction is almost always greater than kinetic friction, because once these two surfaces are moving, these little bumps kind of just glide over each other. Think of it as like if you have a lake and you have a very fast boat, right? The boat doesn't go straight, right? What the boat does is it kind of hops over the water. When you have these two surfaces moving, because these small peaks are so small, they're able to just glide and kind of hop over each other, and that reduces the amount of resistance. So that is why static friction is greater than kinetic friction. Why is it easier to turn a bike pedal the faster you get going? Well, it's because the force that you use to turn a bike pedal is used almost completely in overcoming friction. Here we just look at the front wheel of a bike, for example. Here's the bearing, right? We have frictional forces here. Usually it's just an axle, and then we have a wheel that is tightly fitted around the axle. Of course, if we have ball bearings or something like that, that can reduce the friction, but that's another story. Another source of friction we have here is between the tire and the ground. As the tire rolls, we notice that unlike something like a hard metal cylinder, it's not perfectly round, it's a little bit like this. It's a little bit, looks a little bit deflated at the bottom. And to deform the rubber in this way, and then it'll regain its shape when the wheel spins around, right? This deformed area will be going, sorry, that's not the best way to explain it, but as the wheel spins, the area of the tire that is deformed becomes, it's a different area of the tire. So we're constantly deforming and letting the tire return back to its original shape. And the act of this, again, requires energy, which is why it's another source of friction there. Of course, there is air resistance, but that's largely not relevant to why it is easier to turn a bike pedal once you get going. The second thing I'll address here is the statement that intuitively inertia is doing some of the work once the bike is up to speed. So it is true that to get a bike going from stationary, right, well, this is a terrible bike, but okay, to get a bike going from stationary to a bike that is moving quite quickly, you definitely need to do work. However, and that's what he means by inertia is doing some of the work, I think. But we have to keep in mind the precise definitions here. Work is force times distance. Inertia here does not provide a force. Well, it does, but it's not necessarily the force that accelerates the bike. What we're interested in is the pedaling or possibly someone pushing the bike here, right? This is the force that actually does the work in accelerating the bike. How does that catch up in the force balance? It doesn't. If we take an ideal situation where the wheels are frictionless, it is just as easy to start a bike moving from rest or a bike moving at already a very high speed. I hope this answers your question, and because I don't want to make the videos too long, this is just going to be the first part of the first 3 questions that I'll be recording. Thank you, and I hope you learned something.